A little boy's sudden death shattered his family. In their grief, they blamed his loyal dog and cast him into the freezing snow. But when an officer uncovered the heartbreaking truth, the family realized they hadn't abandoned a killer. They had betrayed their son's most faithful protector. What happened next will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The cabin in the woods was usually filled with laughter. Every morning, the little boy ran across the porch, his boots crunching against the frosty ground, while his loyal German shepherd chased him with boundless energy. They were inseparable, boy and dog, hearts stitched together by love and play. The parents often watched from the window, smiling at the sight. To them, the dog wasn't just a pet. He was family, a protector who never left their son's side. The boy would whisper secrets into the shepherd's ear, tug gently on his fur, and fall asleep with his head resting on the animal's chest. But one bitter winter morning, the laughter vanished. The boy collapsed suddenly, his small body limp and breathless before anyone could react. Panic swept through the cabin. The parents rushed to his side, screaming his name, but nothing they did could bring him back. Grief hit like a storm, tearing through the family with unbearable weight. Their home, once filled with joy, became a hollow echo of silence. And in their confusion and heartbreak, their eyes turned to the only witness who had been there when it happened, the dog. In the days that followed, sorrow twisted into suspicion. The parents replayed every moment in their minds, searching for answers. Their grief was unbearable, and in that haze of pain, they began to wonder if the loyal shepherd had been responsible. Whispers from neighbors didn't help. A big dog like that around a child? It was bound to happen. Others nodded knowingly, their words fueling the doubt. Though there was no proof, the idea sank deeper into the grieving parents' hearts. Every time they looked at the dog, sitting quietly near the boy's empty bed, guilt and anger surged. Together, one evening, unable to bear it any longer, the father opened the cabin door. Snow drifted inside, cold and unwelcoming. He pointed a trembling hand toward the white forest beyond. "Go," he said, voice cracking with both rage and sorrow. The mother stood behind him, tears streaming, too broken to speak. The shepherd hesitated, ears back, tail low, as if he understood the punishment. He took one slow step outside, then another, before the door slammed shut behind him. The once beloved guardian was now an outcast. He sat in the snow, confused, whimpering softly, his breath visible in the frozen air. Yet even after being cast out, his eyes stayed fixed on the cabin door. In his heart, he was still their dog, still waiting, still loyal. The nights were cruel. Snow piled high against the trees, the wind howled through the valley, and the cold cut like knives. Yet the German shepherd never strayed far from the cabin. He curled against the porch steps, shivering, his fur dusted with frost, his eyes fixed on the door that no longer opened for him. Each morning, the parents would find him waiting. His paw prints circled the cabin, evidence of hours spent pacing, hoping, searching for a way back in. Sometimes he scratched gently at the wood, whining softly, only to be met with silence, or, worse, shouted words to drive him away. But no matter how many times he was pushed back into the snow, he returned. When the mother cried inside, the dog howled outside, as if trying to share her grief. When the father sat in silence by the fire, the shepherd lay in the drifts, guarding the home he still believed was his duty. Neighbors passing by shook their heads. "He doesn't understand, he's not wanted anymore," one remarked. But it wasn't ignorance, it was loyalty. The dog couldn't leave. In his heart, he was still the boy's protector, still the family's guardian. Even in exile, he kept watch, refusing to abandon them. And so, day after day, through storms and endless cold, the outcast shepherd remained, an unwanted reminder of loss, but also the last living thread that tied the family to the boy they had loved so dearly. The shepherd's persistence didn't go unnoticed. One afternoon, Officer Miller, a seasoned policeman with kind eyes, drove past the cabin. He slowed his car when he saw the dog hunched in the snow, refusing to move even as the storm worsened. Something about the sight tugged at his heart. He knocked on the family's door. The father answered, weary and grim. "That dog has no place here anymore," he said firmly. The officer's brow furrowed. "Why? He doesn't seem dangerous." The mother stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Our boy is gone, and the only one there was him." Miller listened, but doubt gnawed at him. He had seen cases before where grief clouded judgment, where blame fell on the wrong shoulders. Later that night, he reviewed the boy's medical records and spoke with neighbors. Slowly, pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, symptoms that pointed not to violence, but to an illness long hidden. The more he uncovered, the clearer it became. The shepherd had not been the cause. In fact, signs suggested the dog may have tried to warn the boy's parents before the tragedy struck. Miller knew he couldn't stay silent. The truth was forming like a fire in his chest, and when it was ready, he would bring both the evidence and the loyal dog back to the grieving family. 2 days later, Officer Miller returned to the cabin. This time, he wasn't alone. The German shepherd padded beside him, still weary from nights in the cold, but his eyes lit up at the sight of the familiar home. The father stiffened at the door, ready to turn them away, but Miller raised a hand. "Wait," he said firmly. "You need to hear this." He stepped inside, the dog settling at his feet, tail thumping softly as if sensing what was about to come. Miller placed a folder on the table, spreading out reports and notes he had gathered. "Your boy didn't die because of the dog," Miller explained gently. "He had an undetected heart condition. Silent, hidden, but deadly. When it struck, there was nothing the dog could have done except stay by his side." The mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, tears welling instantly. Miller's voice softened. "In fact, neighbors heard the dog barking frantically that morning, trying to get your attention. He wasn't guilty. He was desperate to save him." The room fell into heavy silence. The parents looked down at the shepherd, who gazed back with unwavering devotion. And in that moment, their grief collided with the truth. They hadn't cast out a killer. They had abandoned their son's last protector. The father's hands shook as he knelt slowly to the floor. The German shepherd tilted his head, cautious at first, but when the man whispered a single word, "home," the dog inched forward, pressing his muzzle into the man's trembling palm. The mother sank beside them, her tears falling freely, as she wrapped her arms around the animal who had never stopped loving them. From that day on, the shepherd was welcomed back into the cabin. He no longer waited in the snow, no longer scratched at a door that wouldn't open. Instead, he lay by the fire each night, his head resting where the little boy once played, a silent guardian of memories and love. News of the officer's discovery spread quickly. What had been a story of blame became one of redemption. Neighbors, who once whispered, now spoke with awe about the dog's loyalty. He was no longer the outcast, but a symbol of devotion, a reminder that love doesn't end, even when life does. For the grieving family, the shepherd became their bridge to healing. And though their son was gone, his spirit lived on in the dog who had never abandoned him or them.